Greetings, visionaries. This is your host, the INFJ Visionary. And with this broadcast, my secret is out. I'm actually a hookah-smoking dragon. I'm not even a human being. But I am an INFJ, and I am a visionary. So I think it's still going to be helpful for all of you. I wanted to talk about, I touched on it briefly the last video where I was, this is not a channel about enlightenment, although God knows that if you watch any videos on any of that, YouTube just goes off the deep end with suggestions. And I have to say that most of the advice I think you would get on YouTube as far as that sort of thing, it's not going to be that helpful. You're probably better off reading a book. Although, like, if you can follow threads, you can follow the NI, and it will lead you places. So I'm not saying don't pursue enlightenment on YouTube. I'm just saying that you can get yourself in a lot of cul-de-sacs, a lot of traps that if you were reading a book or something, you might have escaped. I guess that's what I'm trying to say. Anyway, uh, some of you know I've been looking into the Buddhism thing. I'm not really into proper sit-down meditation, but what I really do like is the idea and practice of mindfulness, the idea of encouraging a sense of awareness in the moment throughout the day. So I've been doing that, and in the past, many years, and probably 20 years ago now, I was into what's called Advaita, which is I guess it's a Hindu thing. It's a mental yoga, and that that required a lot of meditation. I didn't do as well too, but I very much enjoyed contemplating and thinking about the ideas. And one thing upon reflection quite often that resonated with me is that when I looked inside, that what I mostly saw was nothing. The sense of self seems to be kind of like a particulate shell that encloses itself around nothing. In and of itself, it doesn't seem to have much solidity. That said, I guess I really don't like the word ego, but we'll use it. We don't have a better one. Ego being a sense of self-identification for purposes of our discussion today. Um, that said, I'm sure you've probably experienced very similar, and then you think, oh, I'm pretty much egoless. I'm pretty much empty until something comes along that knocks you for a loop, and you realize, well, no, you're not. You're not egoless. You do have a sense of self that you're willing to defend. And what was this book I'm reading? Mindfulness in Plain English, I think is what it's called. Don't quote me. I can't pronounce the guy's last name either, but he's wonderful. It's a great book. And the reason I went for that book was because you can get tripped up on all the language, and to the point where you just go, I don't care about any of this crap. But the ideas, they're valid. Anyway, I'm going to get to my point now. We're 3 minutes in. So I was watching a video, and I did mention this briefly at the end of the last broadcast. A young man, he has a channel, and he is obviously a spiritual seeker, and I had a lot of good things to say. But one of the things he said that I thought was absolutely critical was that he had pursued the mindfulness meditation for years, and was getting kind of addicted to it, but he was finding that it wasn't actually bringing him to any sort of place of enlightenment. Now, the desire and goal to be enlightened in and of itself would be a kind of a grasping idea, just letting you know. Um, However, I think the idea of wanting to be free of suffering and to be wise is not necessarily. So I would make some distinctions there. Yeah. Anyway, not dissing anybody who wants to be enlightened. I mean, why not? It sounds wonderful. And it certainly sounds wonderful not to have a lot of suffering or pain in your life or your mind. But what this young man had discovered was that he needed to work more on his shadow. He needed to work more on the inner. Another term I really don't like. I don't like the term ego, and I do not like the term inner child. But we'll use it. We'll use it, or inner children, as would be more accurate, right? Because there are sort of parts of ourselves that were left abandoned and unloved. Now, as I've touched on in previous broadcasts, I'm not the biggest fan of using psychology and depth insight into these damaged past selves. I think there's something to it, but it's not the be all end all. However, I will say that depending on the amount of damage you had in your past, um, you must go in and do some house cleaning. You need to go in and rectify and reconcile. And this was some points in my spiritual journey. The word reconciliation, I thought, was extremely important. You need to reconcile the pain. Uh, uh, of these abandoned younger selves, and you need to send them some love and acknowledgement. That's really all you have to do. You don't need to set them up with their own little kingdoms. You don't need to massively change the course of your life to accommodate them or their desires. Because nine times out of 10, what they really wanted was some love and attention, and they weren't getting it. And we all need that. And now I have noticed that there is the odd INFJ that is very much like myself, the visionary hookah smoking dragon, occupies the fortress of indifference, is not affected or cares of what other people think, doesn't need other people to acknowledge their, massive array of gifts and nearly infinite levels of wisdom. They don't need that. Yeah, right. I believe you. I think you got to be careful there because you do need some. You do need some acknowledgement, but again, reconciliation is the order of the day. It's really going to be a problem if you have like a cast-off younger splinter self as part of your psyche that never got reconciled, never got love, never got attention. It's going to constantly be manifesting in negative ways and uprooting your goals for your life. So you do need to do some work there. I'm not really an expert in shadow work. I did my own thing, my own way, and I don't have much advice for people in that regard, except that I would say if there's something you don't want to look at inside, then you definitely need to spend time looking at it. There's no idea or concept that's an interior idea or concept that I will not entertain and apply logic, reason, and feeling to until I feel that it has been thoroughly explored and reconciled. So for me, reconciliation is the name of the game if you want to move on. Now, what does moving on mean? Like I just said, it doesn't necessarily mean the enlightenment per se, but it can mean the cessation of suffering and a lot less suffering in your life, and that you can reap immediate benefits. Here we go. Let's just say, somebody's irritating you, pissing you off. Maybe it's a neighbor with some noise or something. This is an opportunity to practice mindfulness. This is an opportunity to, instead of just throwing yourself into the depths of they're being bad and they're not being considerate of others, which really bothers us INFJs, I think. And we don't like it when other people are not considerate of other people. Anyway, instead of going into that, be aware of that. First of all, you have a choice how to react, and don't force yourself to be totally okay with it either. Just watch the process unfold. That is mindfulness, and in the act of doing this, you will suffer less. You won't be gripped by judgment, and whether it was right or wrong. It will leave an impact on your psyche. So Just a few tips from the old visionary here until I come back in a couple days. Keep on keeping on, INFJ.